looks like WWE, speaking of the draft, is expanding its international base. One of the plans that Triple H had when he first took over as the EVP of talent relations is he wanted to do local globalization and he wanted to develop NXT like territories all across the world. Now that Triple H is the chief content officer, according to Shawn Michaels, at the Halloween Havoc media scrum, there are plans in 2023 of expanding NXT to specific countries. Two of those countries that came up that they said that they may be having an announcement soon for is Japan and Mexico, meaning that we're going to get an NXT Mexico and we're going to get an NXT Japan. So the question that I had for you, based on the based on this announcement coming of NXT Japan and NXT Mexico, if they were to be a thing, who would be the face of NXT Japan and who would be the face of NXT Mexico? If you had to pick one person that could be the face of either.
Well, first of all, like I think that's an amazing idea to have an NXT Japan and NXT Mexico, just because like when I think of like where the greatest wrestlers on the planet were trained at or were derived from, they definitely came from Japan and Mexico. So
Right.
that's such a really cool idea. I actually love that. But I had a hard time thinking about like the face of each brand because when I'm thinking about like the wrestlers that are on top, for at least for the females, because my brain immediately went towards the females. I'm like, is there
Mm-hmm.
anyone on like part of the female division that um is currently in NXT and hasn't been brought to the main roster that's been like booked well enough to even represent that? I mean, when I think of Japanese, I think of Sarai or Soraya or whatever her name is. Sorry that I botched it. And she's kind of been a bit of a non-factor. And then you mentioned Mexico. I'm like, do we have any like Mexican? I didn't want to like sit there and assume that every Latina that is um on NXT is Mexican. I was trying to actually look it up while you were asking the question because I'm like, well, Roxanne's Latina, and I think that she's like a really good baby face naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Don't and then I'm pretty sure Cora Jade's just white with tan. And then there's Brazilians in NXT aren't Mexican, so I'm just like, I don't know what you do for the females, but Legado I think would have been perfect. You know, if you want to have a face for NXT, but he got brought up to the main roster. I could only think about people who are formerly in NXT that could show up and be like, "Hey, like I'm homegrown from NXT." You know what I mean? And they want to at least like pay their respects by kind of attaching them. But you're asking
Mm-hmm.
for a face of a brand. That means you got to be on the brand. So it's kind of difficult. I mean, I could see Asuka popping in there because Asuka was like our first introduction to having like Japanese talent like be booked as like the face of a company and booked for it for so long and so well that it kind of like rerouted our brains into what wrestling could be like.
Right.
And then I know that they invested a lot of their time into Raquel, even though she was very controversial. She did have a long reign, or long enough reign on NXT. So I also don't think it'd be wrong if she popped in. But if you're asking me like a name to be the current face that is on the NXT roster, I'm sorry, I don't think I got an answer for you. Do you have any selections?
So for NXT, and I opened this up because I didn't, it doesn't have to be anyone on the WWE roster. It could be WWE roster or people that are in question contractually. So the number one thing, the number one person that I had in mind for the face of NXT Mexico, if they were to go that route, is Andrade. One of the things that have
If he
been,
comes back.
yeah, if he comes back, I think that if if we're talking about like you know, if he has been released, which it looks like he has, and he's dealing with his injury, I think that when he comes back, I think that he can be the face of NXT Mexico. Reason being is because I feel like with LDF, I feel like obviously the main roster, I feel like him being there and Legato being there based on the similarities between Santos and Andrade, I feel like they would clash because they're both debonair, smooth Latino men. And I feel like you don't want them to clash, but you want to have both of them on your roster. So I would just make Andrade the face of NXT Mexico. And I would send them down there with Elektra Lopez and see what they can come up with, because I feel like she was the odd woman out and
Oh.
Zelina kind of took her spot. And I feel like with Elektra being paired with Andrade, they could build something down there while Zelina builds with Legado. And when they cross paths, they can cross paths and the story tells itself. Now, when it comes to,
Oh, I
and now
love
when it,
that. I love the way your brain works. Sorry,
I
go
be,
on.
I be thinking of whatever. Anyway,
I need that on a shirt. I need you
I
going
be
like
thinking
that
of,
on a shirt with that tagline.
I'm gonna do that. That's gonna be the first culture merch. But the second thing, and I think that this is gonna be the most intriguing one, the face of NXT Japan. Triple H needs to check on Kota Ibushi's contract situation
What?
because I, first of all, we forget how much of a generational talent that Kota Ibushi is. And I think that it would be absolutely perfect if they were to establish Kota, if they were to establish NXT Japan, Kota Ibushi should be the face. WWE should buy him out of his contract. Just listen, Japan, how much money do you need? How much? We'll give it. We'll give you the money that you want. We give you the money that you need. But I think that Coda is not. I'm gonna check how old this man is because I don't even know if this
He has
man
to be
is
in
even
his
20.
30s.
No, he's not. I know he's young. Oh wait, he's 40. My bad. I thought he
How
was
old is
super super young. I thought he was super
I
duper
know.
young.
I remember
Either
because I asked somebody before. I'm like, "Yo, he keeps like he gets more brolic and more in shape, but his face don't change. Like he looks great for his age. Like,
right. I thought he
bro,
was like
I don't
20
know what he's
something.
doing.
But I would love to
No,
see
no,
Kota
he got
Ibushi be the.
tenure.
I feel like Kota Ibushi would be the perfect face of NXT Japan, and I'm just gonna keep it at that. Those are my two selections. But I want to know what everybody else
Those are
feels.
great.
Thanks. I want to know what everybody else thinks. Who should be the face of NXT Mexico? Who should be the face of NXT Japan? Let us know in the comments. But moving on, per
Wait,
People
what about
Magazine.
females? You didn't mention females.
I didn't have it. I didn't have anybody. I honestly didn't have anybody for women. Like, cause I think
Fair.
that because you know what it is. I feel like for NXT Japan, I feel like the obvious choice would be Asuka as far as who's in the WWE roster. But I feel like she adds so much to the main roster in the States that they shouldn't relocate her. And she's so
What
much of a
if
main.
Kyrie ever came back?
Hmm. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like they would. I feel like they would make Kyrie's. If Kyrie Sane came back to WWE, I feel like she would be the face of NXT Japan. However, like New Japan got her laced, bro. Like they hooked her up. Like she's the first ever IWGP Women's World Champion. 9 times out of 10, she's gonna be
Oh,
one of the
yeah, no, we
first women.
lost her.
Yeah,
Never
yeah, it's
mind.
over. It's over for that. And she's taking her spot. She's chilling with her man. Um, and she got her title, and I feel like she's just gonna be happy over there. So I just like, if it's broke, don't fix it. Shout outs to Kyrie, but like, if I'm Kyrie Sane, I'm not leaving New Japan unless you're
All
giving
right,
me,
fair say.
a bag. But moving on. So